After an exciting Matchweek 17 of WSL action, we're here to review it. We analyse how Chelsea turned things around in dramatic fashion away at Man City. We discuss whether Tottenham have the worst defence in the league as they suffered a 2-0 defeat to West Ham. And we look at how Kelly Gargo has transformed Everton as she was the catalyst in their 3-0 win. This is our Matchweek 17 review. Alright, let's get into it then. Matchweek 17 of the WSL season. We're back with another weekend review. We'll start as always, Harry, with the early kickoff on the Saturday. It was a good weekend of WSL action, I should say, first. You were live for a game, you watched a lot of it. Good weekend.
Yeah, it was a really, really good weekend. It was one of those where I think that every game, most games, were a game of two halves. It was really exciting. I think that it was a very, very competitive game week. We had big games at the bottom and at the top. And, well, overall, it looks, things are still pretty open, which is exactly what we wanted to see coming out this weekend.
Indeed, and let's start off one of those games nearer the bottom of the table then. Everton 3, Crystal Palace 0. I think given the form Everton are in, this shouldn't feel like a surprising result, but I think when Palace looked at the last 6 games of the season, especially after the win against Villa last weekend, I think they'd have seen this game as one they could have won.
Yeah, very much. As you say, a brilliant victory last weekend, and when you are in that relegation space, when you are down at the bottom, you need to look to build momentum, and they would have looked at Everton as a potential, winnable game. But as you say, Everton, I think that we can't think of them as bottom half, or bottom 3 a team anymore. They are establishing themselves very nicely as a mid-table or even a top half club. They are playing some beautiful stuff. It was another really, really good game from Everton. I think Palace, you could see that, I think, to start the game, they started okay. They had a few opportunities that tested Courtney Brosnan, and they did well to get themselves into the game. And it was one of those where you thought, okay, well, they are up for this. They are going to challenge Everton and put on a good performance. And then it just fell away as the game went on. I mean, the first goal was really unfortunate to not be cleared off the line and ended up being almost scorpion kicked into their own net. But
yeah, that one they should have dealt with. I think as well, Shea Yanez not coming out to claim that cross that obviously Van Havermet scored. I think, again, even if you're not going to get there, you've got a challenge for it. Maybe you get fouled. So it's one of those. It's just a game where Everton's attacking power overpowered Palace. So yeah, I think Everton, though, as you say, deserve respect. I think Kelly Gargo at the moment is one of the form players in the league. Cam Holmgard had a hell of a game, 2 assists and a goal.
Sarah.
Was it Sarah Holmgard? Yeah, it was Sarah Holmgard. Sorry, but yeah, she had a really good game with as I say, 2 assists and a goal. I think Everton played very well. Courtney Brosnan, excellent as always. Yeah. She's been phenomenal for them this season, and yeah, I think they made life really, really difficult for Palace. That's why they went on to win 3-0. I don't think it was an unjustified result, but as I say, it's one of those where with dwindling games left, Palace would have looked at it as an opportunity.
Yeah, they weren't completely out of it. I think 3-0 does slightly favour Everton a little bit. Obviously, Gargo's goal coming in the last seconds, and Palace were a little bit unfortunate in that regard, but they were in this game, and that is the problem, is that if you are going to be competitive in a match, when you're at the bottom, you need to get the results. Everton, though, showing their class, as you say, that they're in form right now. Gargo, what a signing she was in January, because she has hit the ground running. They've finally got a striker and they're winning games. It's brilliant to see.
I mean, who's shocked? It's exactly what we said they needed for the whole first half of the season. But yeah, she's come in and transformed them, really. Added some creativity into the front line and clinicality. So really important there. The problem for Palace is that they have Arsenal and Chelsea the next 2 games. They finished the season with City. So you're looking at their last 5, and the only 2 that look winnable are West Ham at home and Leicester at home. Now, that could be enough to keep them in the league, but that could also be difficult.
Yeah, it really depends what West Ham and Leicester sides they play up against, because, again, they're 2 sides that have looked really, really good in recent weeks. So, Palace, for me, in those last 6, they're going to have to pull off a big result if they want to give themselves a good chance. Getting a result against West Ham or Leicester could be enough, but I think that if they want to go up, they're going to have to find something special against one of those big 3 sides, probably.
Yeah, and that is a problem. As for Everton, well, that win takes them to 7th in the table. It's they've been 7th now for a few weeks, but they've been consistent in the last few, or sort of since January. They have a tough run to the end of the season, though. United, City, Brighton, Liverpool, Tottenham. So I think they'll still finish in a decent position, but that's a tough run of fixtures.
Yeah, it's one of those, though, where it's in their hands where they finish, because they beat Brighton and Liverpool, they will finish 5th in the league, and they will be the best of the rest, and that will be an incredible turnaround. Everyone should beat Tottenham. But yeah, I think that if they win those 2 games, then obviously they they put themselves into fifth. They'll put themselves in a really, really good position. So it's in their own hands. They can decide their own destiny. The run they've got is really horrible, but it could put them in fifth. It could put them in ninth. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, indeed. And let's move up to the sharper end of the table then. Arsenal 4, Liverpool 0. I think this was a big surprise after the few weeks that Liverpool have had under Amber Whiteley. They obviously beat Arsenal in the FA Cup quarter-finals. They beat Manchester United, and obviously they beat Palace as well. So they'd won every game under Whiteley to this point. But this, a really disappointing result. They got torn apart by a very good Arsenal side, but Liverpool did make life easy for them.
Yeah, this was. I think a lot of people are saying that this was expected, and Arsenal fans are, got their revenge, and Liverpool fans are slightly panicked. But for me, I genuinely think it's an anomaly. I think it's a poor result from Liverpool. They conceded 2 goals in 2 minutes, which is shocking for any football club to do, especially when one of them is an own goal. Jazz Matthews, I have no idea what she's tried to do in this game, and that's why I think it's a bit of an anomalous result. To lose 4-0, but your centre-half scores 2 own goals is pretty poor. Probably one, and we went from praising her in that Man United game, in that Arsenal game, and then she's probably gone and dropped one of the worst individual performances I've seen of the season, and that is, that's why Liverpool lost this game 4-0. I don't like to blame it on certain players in there, but that performance was the difference between Liverpool conceding 4 and Liverpool maybe only conceding 2 or 3. Yeah. But it was one of those days. It was unlucky for Liverpool, but again, it's just the basics. You cannot concede 2 goals in 2 minutes and get away with it. But that won't do, and that's why this game was as bad as it was. But to concede 2 own goals and an absolute worldie from Caldente, that's 3-0. At that point, it's looking pretty unfortunate. So I don't think this was I mean, Arsenal were played very, very well, but the fashion in which Liverpool conceded was a mix of unfortune and just really poor defending.
Yeah, I think Liverpool is a bit weird. The changes they made didn't make much sense to me. They brought Holland in over Herbinger, which meant they lacked a lot of ball progression. And they brought Fisk in. They brought Grace Fisk in over Alejandro Bernabé. Bernabé was phenomenal in that United game. So yeah. I find those 2 decisions really bizarre. I think Arsenal, though, they played really well. We can't take that away from them at all. But 2 own goals from Matthews in this game. The fact they conceded in the 28th and 29th minute, and then obviously a great strike from Caldente, it felt like this could have been a game where Liverpool came out on top, actually. I think, as good as Arsenal were, Liverpool flattered them in this game. Yeah,
it's as you say, it's one of those where Arsenal could have played as well as they did, but if Liverpool had sat in and remained solid, like we've seen at times this season for Liverpool, they could have hit them on the counter, but they just didn't get the chance to get those players involved because it was all Arsenal. They're having all the ball. They were really enjoying it. And credit to Arsenal, they played superbly, and it was a really good bounce back from what was a disappointing midweek for them. But they'll look to build on it. It's a massive win in the context of that top 3 race as well, due to other results in the game week. So a big win for Arsenal. And also the return of Victoria Pelova, which was great to see her back after like 308 days or something. So that was really good for her. But all round,
I think 308 days, yeah.
All round, a brilliant evening for Arsenal.
Yeah, I think the result flatters them a lot. I think it's another game where Arsenal dominated, had loads of chances, but actually in a game where Liverpool didn't just put goals in their own net, I think this is another game where we'd be looking at an Arsenal side who didn't take their chances, because they had 18 shots in this match. Only 5 were on target. They had 4 big chances and missed 3 of them. So of the 4 goals, only 1 was a big chance for Arsenal. And I think that speaks volumes about how inclinical Arsenal have been and how they've struggled to penetrate. If you ignore the fact that Mariano Caldente curled one in from from miles out, and the forward goal was well worked, I'll give them that. I think that was the only big chance they scored from. And then obviously 2 own goals from Jazz Matthews. But I think, yes, good result for Arsenal and a good performance, but it was a game where I think they were fortunate with how it panned out.
Yeah, it was one of those where they were never, due to the way that Liverpool played, Arsenal were never going to lose. I mean, it was impossible. Liverpool didn't have a shot on target. There was no way Liverpool could have won the game.
Well, I've seen a team win without a shot on target this season.
Yeah, so just ask Villa. But yeah, I think that Arsenal were never a threat of losing it. 4-0 potentially is a little bit, is a nicer fashion than they deserved. But on paper, the stats would say that it was going to be a 1 or 2-0 win. And I think, and that's the thing, if you take away the Jazz Matthews own goal, it would have been a 2-0 win. So I think that would have been pretty valid. 4-0 though, I think Arsenal also going to take it for Liverpool. Just don't panic. It weren't a 4-0 game. Yes, you need to play better, but we've seen what Liverpool can do in recent weeks. Just forget about it.
Yeah, and for Arsenal, 14 shots inside the box, 5 on target.
Yeah, that's not great.
Well, actually, 4 of the shots inside the box were on target as well. The on-target ones was Caldente's from outside the box. So I think there's still problems for Arsenal in finishing off chances, but they were decent in this game.
Yeah.
Let's move on then to the Sunday fixtures, and we'll start with the early morning kickoff. West Ham United 2, Tottenham 0. This is another game where Tottenham's huge gaping problems in defence were exposed.
Yes.
Massively. The first goal, an own goal, Rybrinck just doesn't deal with the ball coming into the box. The second goal, no words. To allow a free kick to bounce 3 times in the penalty area and go in is nuts.
Yeah.
Just someone get in front of it and clear it away.
It's more surprising. No one in a West Ham shirt managed to get to the end of it either. It was one of those games that could have gone either way, but the difference is that West Ham managed to score 2 just strangely bizarre goals, and that was the difference in this game. Because without those 2 moments of madness, this would have been a 0-0 draw, and both sides would have gone away being unhappy. So West Ham did get the win. They played okay. I think at times they looked really good. I think Shakira Martinez had a really solid game, looked quite dangerous. Being direct, running that Tottenham defence, something we've seen her do numerous times this season, and that was good for her. But as you say, Tottenham just organisationally just really, really poor. The own goal was so bizarre. It was absolutely drilled at Rybrinck, and I just managed to I don't really know how she's managed to put it that in the direction of her own goal there, but that went in. And then the free kick was just a shambles. There's just no one stepping up in that defence and going, right, I'm going to block this. Right, that free kick, all it takes is one defender to go, I'm going to clear this football, and just put their foot through it and put it out.
Someone has to take responsibility in that moment. It's the 90th minute anyway, but
it's ridiculous. Everyone's just got to just someone just take control of that situation, and that is what let Tottenham down. Because I think when they came forward, they looked okay. Marta Thomas kept missing absolute sitters.
14 shots, 3 on target. Both sides had 3 big chances each. They both missed all 3 of them.
The one where someone has a shot, Shemik parries it straight to Thomas in the 6-yard box, and she just passes it back to King of Shemik, just stunned me. That if she puts that with any power or either side of her, that's a goal. Thomas really struggled in this game, and she just couldn't find the target, and that let Tottenham down because overall their creation, I think players like Spence, she had a good game. Their creation and their actual play in the final third, in the middle of the park, was better. But what let them down was the fact that they didn't manage to do anything in the final third, and defensively they're still a mess.
Yeah, again, they can't score without Beth England. We've known that all season. I don't know why Grant keeps starting on the wing. Vinberg, Nasraso all sat on the bench. That makes no sense to me. I just don't get what Tottenham are doing at the moment. I honestly don't know. It feels like a social experiment Villaham's trying to conduct, but they're only 8 points from the drop zone now. The problem is I don't see Palace picking up 8 points. If they'd won this weekend, I think Tottenham would be in serious trouble. I think they've just got enough of the rub of the green this season. They're going to be fine. But honestly, they've now lost 6 consecutive matches.
And
they have scored once in that time.
That's just a shambles.
That's relegation form. Their last win came away at Palace. If that's the other way round, we'd be looking at Tottenham sat right near the relegation zone right now.
And they should have never won that Palace game if it wasn't for an Olivia Holt free kick, who still can't start, by the way.
Well, she started this game, to be fair.
That's good.
Their last win before that was the 1-0 at Leicester, which was a Howard own goal, and they just didn't have a shot on target. They're results that could easily be flipped the other way, and Tottenham would currently be sat bottom of the league. And that has got to be a concern to the Tottenham board, because honestly, performances this season have been tragic.
Yeah.
And they've got Leicester next, who want to keep winning, because they could go above Tottenham with a win.
Yeah.
Or at least level, I think. They've got Aston Villa, who desperately need a win to stay up. They've got Liverpool, who've been in good form. They've got Chelsea, who could win the league at Tottenham's home turf if they haven't done it already.
Quite good.
They've got Everton on the final day of the season. I can see Tottenham going winless in the last 5, and that's the problem now.
Yeah, this is what we've been saying all season. In the first half of the season, they got the results, but were playing really poorly. What's happened now is, as it always happens in football, when you're not playing well, it does catch up with you, and you run out of luck. And that is exactly what's happened. Is the performances are still as bad as they were throughout the whole season. Now they're just not getting away with it anymore, and they've got nowhere to hide. Villaham he has to try something, he has to change something, because as you say, I don't think that Naz or Raso or even Vinberg have had particularly brilliant seasons, but against the likes of West Ham, you play them. You don't bench all three of them. That is just a terrible decision, especially when you haven't got Beth England on the football pitch.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre. They are a one. I don't like to use this, but they very much feel like a one-man band at the moment. And without Beth England, they've just got nothing. They don't stand a chance of beating anybody, and that is a massive problem right now.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Tottenham are in trouble. Aside in West London, who aren't in trouble though, Manchester City 1, Chelsea 2. Chelsea back to winning ways, an important victory. Let's start with the first half though. Slow start for Blues. Caroline, electric.
Yeah, really, really good stuff from Manchester City. But as you say, Chelsea, it very much felt like deja vu from the Champions League first leg. It was really slow from Chelsea, really just lethargic. I think someone on stream said pedestrian, and it was genuinely. Chelsea just felt like they were just there for a kickabout in the first half and just running around. And Man City took advantage. It was a pretty even start to the game, but City got going, and the counter-attack with Caroline rushing forwards was absolutely superb. She caused so many issues. She got in early, and that's when you knew it was going to be a problem, when she managed to burst past Charles, get a shot off, and it was a really good piece of goal kicking from Hannah Hampton. But she eventually found her luck. I have no idea what Chelsea are doing defensively for the goal. Just kept backing off, and she just passed it into the bottom corner. It has to be one of the slowest goals I think I've ever seen. Just watching that ball just roll. Oh, it's in. Hannah Hampton was rooted to the spot. It was a really bizarre one for Chelsea to concede, but it felt like it had been coming. The warning signs had been going, and again, similar to the midweek, Chelsea didn't react to it, and City got their goal. The difference is that City didn't manage to get two, which we'll get on to that in a minute. But yeah, I think that Chelsea, another really poor first half, but Man City, really good stuff. They were good on the ball. I think the centre halves had another good, solid 45 minutes there, and they deservedly led 1-0 at half time.
Yeah, Chelsea failed to register a shot on target in the first half, which I'm sure there'll be some WSL statistician out there that can tell us that's the first time that's happened since 2011 or something. But second half, night and day, really. Chelsea, phenomenal. They started quickly. Beaver Jones with the goal in the 49th minute, and then obviously that late winner from Erin Cuff. But to look at stats, though, they went from having 52% of the ball in the first half to 61% in the second half. 23 shots compared to how many they have in the first half? 5. That's completely different. 8 shots on target, 7 big chances. The fact they didn't win this game by an absolute canter is partly down to Kiara Keating being formidable, partly down to Kana Reid not being able to hit a barn door with a banjo. I thought Kana Reid was brilliant second half, but she just couldn't score for love nor money.
Yeah, Chelsea were absolutely superb, and this is what top tier teams do. This is what world class managers do. Is that when their side have been really, really poor, they find a way to turn it around. What a reaction from Chelsea! They immediately, and we said it, the first 10 minutes of that second half were better than anything we've seen from Chelsea in 2025 so far. It was absolutely electric. Got the goal with Beaver Jones. It was brilliant football across that 45 minutes. Kiara Keating was absolutely outstanding. Pulled off some top tier, world class bits of goalkeeping to prevent Chelsea from scoring more. And it was the winner was very, very late, and a lot of people have said, I've seen all the headlines are Erin Cuthbert rescues Chelsea, but on the complexion of the actual game, as soon as that first goal went in from Beaver Jones, it was very much a feeling of when, not if, will Chelsea score.
Yeah.
And that was the difference. A lot of people will reference the Park goal in the first half that didn't stand. It's a really poor piece of refereeing. Why would you not play it? Well, she did initially play the advantage, waited for Park to shoot, and then gave the free kick. Absolutely bizarre decision. Brilliant goal from Jess Park. And City were unfortunate that was ruled off. And at 2-0, maybe it's a different game. But after and at half time, it was very, very unfair. And obviously, a lot of people were saying that, if Chelsea got on to win the game, it would be a joke. But with the way that Chelsea had played, I still think that if Man City were 2-0 up, Chelsea would have still won the game. And because of the way that they absolutely blew City out of the water in that second half. And that's what champions do. And this is the thing. Is Man City didn't drop their standard. That's the important thing to remember. Is Man City kept playing at the same level, and it was a good standard. It was a good level throughout the game. The difference was in the first half Chelsea were rubbish. In the second half Chelsea were absolutely brilliant, and that is why the game shifted. So there's no slight on Man City, because it's one of those where, and you get this with the best teams in the world, is that when they are on their day, when they play their best stuff, you can't really stop them. And that was kind of the case for Man City, and if it wasn't for Keating, then Chelsea probably would have won 3 or 4-1.
Yeah, really strong second half performance from Chelsea. I think it, obviously we're looking at the context of the situation. Chelsea have had to play City multiple times in a row. I think whatever Bompastor does at half time must have been incredible because Chelsea came out in that second half a just completely different side. I think as well the strength on the bench made a difference in the last half an hour. I think the fact that Chelsea brought on Cuthbert, Kira Walsh, Maya Ramirez, Katerina Macara, and Mia Fischel, that adds so much to your attack compared to Man City, who did bring on Fowler, to be fair, but then at the late stages were forced to bring on Weinreuter and Murphy due to injuries to Hasegawa and to Alexandri, which will not be a massively encouraging sign for City ahead of the game on Thursday. And then obviously Harvey came on late on as well. Looking ahead to Thursday, does this performance give more belief to you as a Chelsea fan that Chelsea could go on and win that game at Stamford Bridge by 2, by 3 goals and get through to semi-finals?
It shows that if Chelsea want to win the game and if Chelsea play at their best stuff, Man City will be powerless to resist it. But it's a big question is, will Chelsea deliver that performance? Because if Chelsea have another slow first half and Man City are 1-0 up, then if you're asking me, are Chelsea going to win the second half 3 or 4-0 to get through? Maybe not. So it's one of those where it depends what Chelsea do. If Chelsea play like they did in that second 45 at the Etihad, if they play like that for 90 minutes on Thursday, they will win that game. And no offence to Man City, but they won't stand a chance simply because Chelsea will just be too strong. But it's whether Chelsea bring that standard, and that'll be interesting to see. But it's a big win for Chelsea. It's an important one because if Chelsea had lost this one, the gap closes to 5 and it gets a little bit nervy. But with an 8-point gap, they're looking very comfortable at the top.
Yeah, I think Chelsea will be very happy with this win. The rotated side of midfield pivot of Captain and Orient Jean-Francois, very young, very inexperienced, a makeshift backline as well. I think Chelsea can be very pleased with this. I think once the first team come back in for Thursday, I fully believe Chelsea can win that game 2 or 3 now.
Potentially so. And Man City, well, for me, they've got to win the Champions League now if they want to qualify for it next season. They're in a massive, they're in big trouble. Is the gap now 7?
It is now back to 7 points to Manchester United. So again, though, if United lose to all of Arsenal, City and Chelsea, City can get back into that top 3. But that relies on City being flawless now to the end of the season.
And United losing to all 3 of them, which it's going to be very, very difficult because United playing
But it isn't unrealistic.
It's not. That is true. So they still got a chance. It is still in their hands. Well, no, it's not in their hands at all, actually. They're relying on Man United to drop points.
It's in United's hands.
It's in United's hands, and that is the massive problem for City because... it's a big ask now. It's not on Nick Cushing. He's done a really, really good job. I want to see him coach against someone that isn't Chelsea, and I can't wait till next weekend because he's going to have a great time against Brighton.
Will he?
Well, I don't know. But maybe.
What are Brighton doing?
I don't know what Brighton are doing.
On that lovely note, let's get on to Leicester 3, Brighton 2.
Another game with 2 halves.
What happened here?
What a game. If you'd told me that Leicester would be 3-0 up at half time, I'd have told you were absolutely mental. What a game. Amandine Mikel and Leicester proving once again that they are on that. They are not. The league table does not represent how good they are. It was a really, really good first half for Leicester. They competed with Brighton. Brighton, again, similar story, was just that they cost themselves defensive errors again. We're talking own goals. We're talking giving penalties away. I know that was in the second half and they missed it anyway, but still, it's those silly mistakes in defensive areas that are massively letting them down. They're in 5th for a reason, because they are a good side. They've got a brilliant front line and they've got some top players, but defensively, they've just been a mess at times, and this game was so messy.
It's one of those where Brighton's system's been figured out now.
Yeah.
And I think, but for Brighton, for Vidicic, there's not really much point changing it now with 5 games left of the campaign.
No.
They're probably going to finish top half now anyway. I think that Liverpool are too inconsistent. Everton have got 2 tougher fixture lists. West Ham, I don't think, are strong enough really to claim the points. So I think Brighton should be fine, and they'll probably get results against some of the smaller sides that have got left to play. But yeah, it's this was a really poor first half performance from Brighton, but they did have 70% of the ball throughout the game.
Yeah,
and yet they still conceded 3 goals. Even first half, 68% possession, and yet they only had 4 shots to Leicester's 9.
They didn't do enough in the first half, let themselves down, because in the second half they were brilliant. And again, it was a similar difference. Obviously, it's not quite the same to Chelsea, but it's one of those where if Brighton had played the same, if they played like that for the whole game, they would have won the match. Because in that second half, they caused Leicester so many issues. They got back within 2, which was really, really strong. nearly levelled. They had some big chances, some good saves from Leipzig, and on another day they'd have drawn this game 3-3.
But I think there was a noticeable difference when you compare that to Chelsea and City. I think there was a noticeable difference in how Leicester played. They definitely took their foot off the gas, sat a little deeper, and looked to just hold on and consolidate that result. And they did. And so I understand the game plan from that perspective. But I think that played into why Brighton looked better in the second half. But still, a better performance from Brighton in the second half. 11 shots, 5 on target, 2 big chances. Much better. But Leicester, if they scored that penalty, would have been out of sight anyway. Obviously, Brighton relied on a penalty to try and get back into the game. I thought it definitely was a pen. I think Nikita Parris did well to win it, but it was still a pen. And obviously well dispatched by Kirby. But one of those where Brighton were really, really surprisingly poor again. And I think that will be a bit of a concern now for the board and for Vitesse.
Yeah, I think they just gave themselves too much to do in the second half. If they were only without the own goal on the stroke of half time from McLaughlin, again a complete mess between her Loek, Chosanote, or as the commentator kept calling her Chosnot, which was
that really
an interesting way of putting it. But I think that it's one of those where if that doesn't happen, they're only 2-0 down. Do they pull it back potentially? Well, at least they've got a draw. So it's one of those where they gave themselves too much work to do in the first half. But again, if they bring that second half performance to their end of the season run, then they will get some really, really good results.
Well, that's the thing. Brighton's last 6 have been so bizarre. They drew with Crystal Palace, which again, they really should be winning. They lost to Villa in the FA Cup. They lost to West Ham. Then they drew with Chelsea, beat Tottenham, lost to Leicester. It just makes no sense.
No, there's no consistency. This is one of those in football where you just can't explain it. You cannot explain what is happening to Brighton right now. But overall, they've still come out of all of that and they're still in 5th place. So they don't need to worry about too much.
Just crack on because their start to the season was so strong. They're in an all right position now. I mean, they're not going to get European football or anything like that, but they're probably also not going to slip into the bottom half. So I think Brighton will be happy to stay where they are and see where this season takes them. Last game then, Aston Villa 0, Manchester United 4. Awful from Villa, but United very strong.
Yeah, really, really good stuff from United again, and a performance that was needed as the last game of the day. You know what is needed of you. You know what results you need to produce. With Arsenal winning 4-0 on Saturday, with Manchester City losing, United knew this was a really, really good opportunity, and they took Villa to the sword. Brilliance again from Elizabeth Turland. The first one was the easiest goal she'll score all year. The second one...
But good movement from Turland to get into that position.
And
good technique behind the finish.
The second one, what a ball from Jade Riviere that is. Straight onto the head of Turland. Again, good movement, good header, lovely goal.
Riviere, phenomenal by the way. And there was a drive in the first half where she cuts inside, strikes with the left foot. I thought that might just go in. Yeah. But she's seen a player that's playing with a lot of confidence.
Absolutely brilliant. And United, they're high flying, as you say, they're really confident and they're just smashing teams out the park at the moment. And well, I know they lost. It was a really, really good reaction again from the Liverpool. Once again, I think importantly proving that again was just a really, really bizarre result where Liverpool were just incredible. And Man United back to winning ways here. 7 points now ahead of Manchester City. It's exactly where they want to be. Again, as we said earlier, European football is in their hands. If they keep playing like they did last night, then they're going to keep ploughing on and they will get finishing that top 3, which will be absolutely massive for them if they can get themselves back onto the European stage. But Aston Villa, I do understand. I don't understand what Arroyo's tried to do here. They've played well but not got the results. So she changed the system to try and get a result, try and sit deep and just keep Man United out. But it just didn't work. And the problem is I don't understand this from her because, as we've seen, Arroyo's system works really well against the big sides and struggles against the weaker sides. So why would you change it against the stronger sides? Got it all wrong, went to the 5-back, just did not work, got torn apart. They were absolutely embarrassed and still a lot of work to do and a lot of questions. They are in a real spot of bother because if Crystal Palace pick up any points in their last 6, Aston Villa are suddenly into the relegation zone. They've got to find the results from somewhere, and I just don't see where that comes from right now.
The Grace Clinton goal then, foul or no foul?
I think I don't think so. I don't think.
I'm going to hard disagree. I think she's just grabbed her by the back of the neck and thrown her on the floor.
I don't.
Great technique behind the strike, really well taken. But the fact the ref is right there and doesn't give that, it's a blatant shirt pull. I don't see how that's not a foul. And then obviously the Legarten goal as well. A player who I think is not particularly loved by United fans, but I think she's always a fairly reliable performer.
Yeah, I don't know why. Again, another really good performance.
I think if you're looking at this United side and you go, where could you make a big upgrade? I think it would be that left-hand side, but Ganton has been fairly reliable, and I think if they were to bring in a starter, she'd still be a very reliable option off the bench. But I think that's where that contention from United fans comes from with Galton. But yeah, again, United, huge bounce back. Villa, incredibly poor.
Yeah, they're in trouble now, and I think that, again, though, they don't need to panic. They've got a manager. They've got a good manager. They've got a good side. If they can just find a way to stay in the division this season, then next season they can build, and I think they'll be a force to be reckoned with next year. But they've got to stay in the league. If that side gets relegated, they will absolutely walk the championship.
But this is the thing. I'm not sure they do have a good side. I think it's as much as you can point to individuals and say they're good players, as a team, it just doesn't function. It needs a big rip up this summer.
Yeah, but not. But they need to stay in the division for that to work, because if if they go down, their side will absolutely they will win that league by canter. Chastity Grant will score about 25 goals.
Is the problem.
He'll probably leave,
but I think players like Silva and Grant would be on the first plane out of Villa. But yeah, I think it's as you say, it's a really strong team. If Jordan Nobbs and Rachel Daly was cutting up in the Championship, then it would be very difficult for other teams to deal with. But yeah, I think Villa have been really poor this season. And they're very fortunate that Palace haven't got results when they perhaps should have, because I think they'd be in a very different situation right now.
Yeah.
Let's run through this table then, and I'll try and not cough through it. 12th. Well, no, we usually start at the top. Why don't we start at the bottom? Top of the league is Chelsea, a big win this weekend. They remain 8 points clear and open up a 15-point gap back to Man City. Very, very strong, considering those two were fighting for the title at one point this season. In second, it's Arsenal. Great recovery under Renee Slagers, really. They started poorly this campaign, but they are now second. 8 points behind Chelsea. That's not going to happen, but they should stay in the Champions League places. In third, United on the same amount of points, but with tough fixtures ahead. There is still a bit of fear in the United camp. In fourth, Man City and their chance of Europe taking a huge blow this weekend with their loss to Chelsea. In fifth, it's Brighton, just sat there in no man's land, 22 points. They're probably not going to go up. They could go down, but they probably won't. Sixth in the table, Liverpool, 21 points. Seventh, it's Everton on 19. A big win for them this weekend. Same, of course, as well for West Ham, who jumped Tottenham with their win. Tottenham slipping down to 9th as they had another poor showing. Leicester climbing to 10th with their victory over Brighton. In 11th, it's Aston Villa. Poor display. Leaves them just a point by the drop zone. Crystal Palace, bottom of the league. Disappointing result against Everton, but reasons to believe they may be able to stay up. They just need a result somewhere, Palace.
5 games to go. We're into the run-in now. This is where it all counts. Yes, it might be wrapped up with the title, but we've still got a relegation fight. We've still got a European fight. And yeah, well, Chelsea are 2 games away from potentially winning the league, which is very interesting for them. But yeah, what a weekend.
It was a fantastic weekend of WSL action. We'll be back in the midweek with Champions League action. Join us Wednesday for our UWCL preview, and obviously 2 live streams as well. That, though, rounds up our Matchweek 17 review. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.